Wesley Dodds, The
Mhm.
Sandman, issue 6, Robert Venditti writing with Riley Rosmo on the art. Take it away, Matt.
Yeah, so this is the final issue of this, and Venditti and Rosno really bring the entire story together. Even though all had been revealed at the end of the last issue, where it's Vanderlyle, Wesley's dad's like friend and business partner, and that he knew that Wesley, being a pacifist, would never ever use his science to cause people harm. So he engineered this entire thing in order to force Wesley's hand. Um, and so, because he knows what's coming, he had seen the war in World War One. He knows bigger things are coming, and that he can't just stand by and let Wesley not do this. And so Wesley and him end up having this big fight where Wesley ends up ends up taking his mask off to try to reason with him as, hey, you're like family. Why would you betray my father like this and all of that? And while he is fighting, he ends up getting cut with a what's the word here? Why can't I think of things today? A bayonet that Wesley's father had given Vanderlyle. Um, and Wesley ends up getting kind of dosed with his own gas as he's going through this, and he starts seeing what Vanderlyle has. Like, if they put these gases into a war, what will happen? And so, not only is it his dream gas, but we're kind of getting the vibes of the nightmare stuff as well. Um, and as Wesley's kind of all loopy, Vanderlyle takes that um, and tells him, I lived in the war. Your father lived it. He would understand me. And he goes to stab Wesley, and he ends up blocking it. Um, but it finally gets through, and that's where Vanderlyle stops, right? Because he feels like he's won. He's made his point. And as him and Wesley are talking, he goes, Wesley, as he's kind of crowing over him, Wesley grabs his book that's full of all of the formulas and throws it into a fire, which very upsets Vanderlyle. And so he picks up a fireplace poker um, and ends up just beating the mess out of Wesley. And I'm thinking as I'm reading this, well, there's no way this guy can get away with it, right? Because this is kind of a prequel series to Wesley's time with the JSA. Um, and as he's basically going to, deliver a killing blow when he pulls a gun on Wesley, there's a gunshot as Vanderlyle tells him, tell your father I said hi. And Wesley's girlfriend, Diane, comes in. She's the one that fires the gun and kills Vanderlyle as he's standing over Wesley. So even though, Wesley had this whole point of, I'm going to try to talk to him, there was no talking him down. As a pacifist, right, as someone that didn't actually want to kill him, it's really taken out of his hands. And it's Diane that gives the killing blow to where Wesley finally, from his stab wound, from getting beat with the fireplace poker, he ends up collapsing into her arms. And it picks up 6 months later, and Wesley's, in his house. He's surrounded by all these oddities, and his butler has made a full recovery. Um, and Diane brings her nephew in to meet Wesley, and he introduces him as Sandy. And so we get a tease of Sandy the Golden
Okay.
Boy / Sand, and Wesley talks with Diane and says, hey, like, I've been having dreams. I've been having new dreams. Um, and you know, what does he say here? He says, I can't be the only one who sees where the world's headed and who wants to do something. Am I alone? And Diane commiserates with him. She's like, yeah, I took a man's life. I still don't know how to be. And they end up hugging and saying, at least we're alone together. And the butler comes back and says, Mr. Dodds, you have some visitors. And Wesley goes out, and the Justice Society is waiting for him. And it is, it's Jay and Hawkman, Hourman, Alan Scott, the Spectre, Dr. Fate, and the Thunderbolt. And they, are like, hey, we want to talk to you. We heard you know where the future's going. We want to form a group. So it teases a Justice Society, at the end of this. I will say it's almost a self-parody to complain about Rosmo's art. So I'm not going to do that here because I feel like this pulpy, cartoony, this is where his bread and butter is. The art in this book is so good. When we get to the stuff like the action sequences,
I'm just taking it back. I thought you were building up to, but he's more suited to this. But you just said it's so good, like you're actually really praising it.
I am, because he is suited for this, and this is good art, especially in this issue. When we get to where he is beating Wesley, right? We get one of his kind of crazy layouts where it kind of goes all over the place, but it's easy to follow. You're not going around, but on the top of the page, it's Vanderlyle hitting him with the fireplace poker. And then there's a bunch of these smaller panels that are kind of like at Dutch angles throughout the middle of the page. And each one of them is like a different body part on Wesley, right? So it's like it's his hand. It's like from his shoulders up. His glasses are bent and broken. And interspersed in all those are also panels of Vanderlyle and just his rage, right? So it's like you see his mouth with his gritting teeth and the fire in his eyes. And that page ends with we're looking straight up into Vanderlyle, like where Wesley, and he's standing over him and yelling at him and calling him a coward. So it really drives home the point of the emotion in the scene while doing something that I've never really seen. Like you do see perspective stuff like this in comics, but not the way that it works out like this. And it kind of, there's a, like, what's the word? Like when it's like a movie, right? I'm having a hard time today. I think I need some sleep. But like when something's like cinematic, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of cinematic in a comic book way, because I don't think you could get away with a shot like this in a movie in the way that you can in a comic. So it's really taking advantage of that. And then when we get to see at the end, the Justice Society, they're in Rosmo's own way, but they're not as grotesque as we've seen before, and so it gives it a very kind of classic feel to these characters. He really, I said online early in the week, it's dripping with pulp, and he's very well suited for this. So as we were seeing in the solicits, yeah, we have a Jeff Johns Justice Society book going on, but it's been such real hit or miss in the way that it keeps getting delayed and is on. I would be very comfortable with them handing the reins of Justice Society to Venditti and Rosmo and just setting it in this time period. And we get the adventures of them in the 30s and 40s and maybe even post through World War II. And I think that, that would be a book I would definitely be interested in reading month to month. Because Venditti shows real here. He has a good take on the characters. And Rosmo with this time period, I mean, we've talked about it with the Batman and Shadow book. It's just something about his art that lends itself to this era. So, and I'm surprised because, again, it's easy to kind of bag on him with a lot of the stuff that we've seen in his Harley and his Martian Manhunter, that it's just not our taste. This is very much my taste. So it kind of shocked me. But this, as a whole, this story is really good. And I'm glad I kept up on it. And yeah, so this issue I will give an 8.5.